Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. It's Thursday. We are almost to Friday. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, please consider a membership. The problems with Lori Daybell serving as her own attorney. Where to begin? First, she has a temper and you can feel it simmering below the surface, which means the jurors can see it as well. Lori lost her cool with one of the detectives called out to her house after her brother, Alex Cox, unalived her estranged husband, Charles Vallow. Lori also was not happy about a woman named Nancy Jo Hancock testifying about what Charles said to her about his wife, Lori, when they were briefly dating in July of 2019. In fact, Nancy and Charles went on a date the night before Charles was unalived. Nancy was able to hold her own as Lori shot questions at her like an automatic tennis ball machine. And if Lori could have hit her with some of those tennis balls, she would have loved it. Most of the questions were irrelevant and quickly flagged as objectionable. Lori was desperate to create the illusion that she and Charles were still together and not in the midst of a divorce. She kept referring to Charles not by his name, but instead by my husband. To me, this was oh so telling when it comes to Lori's calculating nature and bamboozling. Pun intended, and if you watched the trial yesterday, you get the bamboo reference. Remember, Lori told Alex that Charles had been taken over by an evil spirit named Ned Schneider at one point and Garrett at another, and that he had become a zombie. If Lori truly believed all that, why isn't she sharing it in court? There's been zero zombie talk, and Charles is now, quote, my husband, as in Lori's husband, right up until the day he died. Lori also displayed hypocrisy in a big way when she asked Nancy, in a very aggressive tone, if she knew that she was dating a married man. Charles had already started seeking a divorce. So while technically he was married, he was estranged and he was in the process of cutting ties. Lori was actually the one cheating on Charles with Chad Daybell, who must have had some magic power over her, because Chad is no Charles Vallow. He can't hold a candle to Charles. Where does Lori get off accusing Nancy, who met Charles on a Mormon dating site, of basically being some sort of trollop who has no problem hooking up with married men? Nancy, who probably knows more about Lori than the rest of us, thanks to her long chats with Charles, deftly volleyed back responses that put Doomsday Lori smack in her portal and let the jury know it was Lori who had the affair, not Charles. Lori said to Nancy at one point, quote, so you spent your whole date getting to know each other talking about me. Nancy fired back, don't flatter yourself. I wish she could have added the word honey after that, as in don't flatter yourself, honey. Everybody watching the trial was pretty much, I think, saying to themselves, you go girl, Nancy. Nancy described what a Southern gentleman, what a kind man, and what a fit guy Charles was. She also emphasized how much Charles adored JJ and how much he was looking forward to picking him up for school the day that he was unalived. Nancy said she was impressed that Charles was still being very kind to Lori despite her crazy behavior, despite her threats. And one of Nancy's key contributions to the trial was when she told the jury that she advised Charles to let Lori know that he had changed the insurance policy benefactor Nancy was concerned that Lori might actually hurt Charles in order to get her hands on the $1 million in life insurance. And that, after all, is the motive that the prosecution put forth. I mean, it's part of the motive. It was definitely one of the main things fueling Lori and Chad. They wanted to be together, and they wanted to have a really good lifestyle. So they both thought about collecting the life insurance on their spouses. And to get that, you know what had to happen? The spouses had to die. And although it's only day 3 of the trial, the judge is beginning to lose his patience. Can you imagine what a nightmare this must be for the judge? He has to walk the fine line between keeping Lori Daybell in check, but not doing anything that could give her grounds for an appeal if she is convicted of this crime. On to the bamboo. Lori made a big point of saying that Charles was wearing a $200 bamboo shirt when he died, and she was trying to argue that the durable bamboo fabric could have somehow contributed to his fatal wounds. To me, this was ludicrous. And at this point, I get the feeling the judge can't stand Lori. And I get the feeling that the judge can't stand Lori. And I also got the feeling that the detective on stand despises her as well, along with most of the spectators. Seems like everyone, we don't know what the jurors are thinking, but pretty much everyone else can easily see through her hair of many colors. There's pretty much nothing to admire in this smug and unrepentant criminal except the thickness of her hair of many colors. But I will say there's something else about Lori that's very interesting. She's been very loyal to Chad Daybell and also to her brother Alex. She hasn't thrown either one of them under the bus. And Alex being deceased now would seem to be the perfect scapegoat. But instead, she keeps trying to portray Alex as somebody who was very calm, somebody who was nervous about giving Charles CPR, and that's why he didn't do it. She was even asking the detective, how do you know who pulled the trigger? She basically was saying, do you know who pulled the trigger? You weren't there. Did you check me for residue on my hands? Did you check Tylee? And of course, the detective said no, because they didn't do that. And also the reason they didn't do that was because Alex confessed, although he said it was self-defense. The other thing that keeps standing out to me is Lori's ice queen attitude when it comes to Charles' brutal death and horrendous injuries. Those injuries were caused by projectiles that tore through Charles' heart and abdomen. And we found out yesterday that they were full metal jacket. This type of projectile, I can't say the actual word, that's why I'm saying projectile, is designed to penetrate targets better than soft point or hollow point projectiles. This variety can pass through a target, as they did with Charles, and go on to hit unintended things, like other people, which is why they're not recommended for self-defense purposes. Pretty much anybody into weapons knows that. So clearly, Alex chose those full metal jacket projectiles because he wanted them to tear through Charles. And we know that one of them went straight into Charles' heart. What a metaphor. Break Charles' heart. And if Charles could see everything that happened after that, what they did to JJ, how they took his dog away, what they did to him when he was unalived, I'm pretty sure his heart would be broken. And personally, I'm wondering now if maybe Lori delivered one of those wounds to Charles. She was, after all, engaged in a war to rid the world of zombies. And Charles was conveniently labeled a dark spirit by Chad Daybell. I really hope that Chad is sitting in his prison cell, pounding his head on his metal mattress shelf or on his shiny metal toilet, ruining the day that he met this vixen with her loins of fire. Don't you want to know what Chad thinks about Lori at this point? Is he still so happy to call her his bride? Is she still his trophy bride? When I think of all the things that Lori was involved in when it comes to JJ, Tylee, Tammy Daybell, and Charles Vallow, allegedly, I see her standing up in front of the jurors acting as her own lawyer. How dare she get up there and prance around like she's some skilled lawyer that everybody should admire? Sorry, but the truth is she's an unaliver of innocent people, including a little autistic boy. There's absolutely nothing decent about her. A friend of Lori's and Charles from the Mormon Church in Arizona also testified yesterday, and Lori apparently had told her about Charles turning into a dark spirit, and that lady was very concerned for Charles. And she let Lori know that if anything happens to him, she would have to go to the police. So I'm pretty sure the jurors are already getting a really good picture of what Lori is like and what she did. So I suspect there will be no deliberations when they go into the jury room at the end of the trial, even though there are 12 dudes and only 2 females on the jury. By the way, Charles' sister, Kay, was in court yesterday, and apparently at one point, she just stared at Lori for an extended period. It must be so hard for Kay to have to hear all this crap. Kay's husband is not with her. He's back in Louisiana helping a sick relative. I'm going to share some clips of the trial from yesterday, and I will leave you with that, and I will see you next time on Bedcrime Stories. Love you guys.
If someone very muscular like my husband were 2 to 4 feet away from you holding up a bat, would you consider that a threat?
Can I object to speculation, relevance?
Your Honor, I'm asking for his opinion as a professional and as a firearms expert.
He's not, okay.
That goes to the ultimate
Hold on.
decision.
The objection is sustained and it calls for a legal conclusion.
It calls for a legal conclusion?
Yes, move on.
Were you present, Detective, when my husband was shot?
No, ma'am.
Is there a video recording of it?
To my knowledge, no.
So is your opinion then an educated guess about what really happened?
It's based on known facts.
Okay. Were you aware, Detective, that my husband and my brother were very good friends?
No, ma'am, I didn't know the relationship.
Did you know that they hung out and played golf together?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I'm going somewhere with this.
Well, I
My
guess,
follow-up question will explain.
I guess you can answer if you knew that they played golf.
I did not know.
In all of your investigation of my life, you never came across this information?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Are you familiar with my husband's wishes for his funeral?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Did you learn in your investigation that he named my brother Alex as one of his 5 best friends?
And I'm going to object again to relevance.
Sustained.
Did you read the reports in this case?
I did not read all of the reports in this.
Storage facility, is that correct?
Yes, it went to a drying cage.
Okay. Detective, are you familiar with bamboo clothing?
Can't say that I am.
Okay. Were you aware that on July 29th, 2019, my husband was wearing a $200 bamboo workout shirt?
Objection to relevance.
He can answer if he knows.
I have no idea what the cost is.
Are you aware that bamboo is a heavy-duty fabric not to rip or tear except under extreme conditions?
I've not done any research into bamboo fabric.
Okay. So could this fabric of his shirt have caused the wound to be short?
It could have been a contributor, but it would not have been in this particular case.
Why so?
The body would have been on the floor where the bullet defect was in the floor.
So you just said in your report earlier that a short wound could be caused by tight clothing. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you're saying that could not have happened in this case?
The shirt did not appear to be tight clothing to me.
Well, it was made of bamboo, as we established, right? Is that correct?
I am taking your word for it. I do not know that it's a bamboo shirt.
Okay. And you did not investigate that at all?
No, ma'am.
But you had the shirt in your possession?
It was seized as evidence, yes.
And you never checked what kind of fabric it was?
No, ma'am.
And you never checked if that could be a possibility?
No, ma'am.
And you knew that spandex was kind of a material that could make that kind of short mark that you just mentioned, correct?
It would have to be super tight clothing.
Super tight clothing?
Yes.
Or a fabric that's even stronger than the spandex that you mentioned?
The strength of the fabric, I don't believe, has a huge play in it unless it is form-fitting and compressing the skin, much like a hard surface or firm surface would.
Okay. But what you said in your report was that held in place by tight clothing could cause a short wound.
As has been explained to me, yes.
Okay.
Based upon everything you had heard, was Charles coming in to see you, or was there some other reason he was in Arizona?
Charles was ecstatic to see JJ. He was coming to see JJ, so excited to take him to school the next morning. He was also coming to look for a place to live. He had an appointment to meet a realtor friend after he had taken JJ to school. And then he was also supposed to meet with Lori's brother, Adam.
So you and Charles have this evening on the 10th. Were you going to meet again?
Yeah, we were supposed to meet up in the late afternoon after he got through with the things that I just said.
So did you have a set time for the next day?
Mm-mm.
Can you describe Charles? Was he a fit man? What was his size?
Very fit and into physical fitness. And while we were talking, I know that he was swimming. You know, I got to go to the gym and, yeah, very, very fit, strong.
When you were talking with Charles on July 10th, that evening, let me ask first, do you recall about what time you ended up meeting him?
It was around 7. I got there first, and but it was right around 7, between 7 and 7:15, I'd say.
And do you recall about how long you guys were together until you finally
Well, the
left?
restaurant closed at 10, and they were closed, and no one else was there, so it was after that we left. And then, like I said, we stood by my truck and talked for another half hour, 45 minutes after that.
Okay. So a later evening.
Yes.
Can you tell us, you said that you understood he was going to go see his son. What was his demeanor about with regards to JJ and seeing his son?
Like a kid on Christmas morning. He was very excited to see JJ.
Would you have gone on a date with him if he would have said he was married?
If I would have realized how married he still was, maybe not. But I just met for dinner. I wasn't sleeping with him or anything.
Do you go on dates with married men? Naturally?
Argumentative. I'm going to also object under 611 for harassment.
All right. I'll sustain the objection.
Your Honor, do I not have a right to cross-examine this witness for what she has already testified to?
You can cross-examine her about what she's testified to.
So you did go on a date with a married man,
I went on a date with Charles.
but you did not know he was married.
I knew his divorce was not final.
His divorce was not started.
Okay.
Okay. So in your text messages, you asked Charles if he was a good kisser. Is that correct?
Maybe, sure.
Did he answer that text message?
I'm
gonna
sure.
object to
I'm sure he did.
relevance. Again, 611, harassment.
I'll sustain the objection for relevance and hearsay.
So are you trying to tell me and this jury that you went on one date with my husband and he told you all the details of our lives?
I'm telling you the truth, and that's what I know.
So you spent your whole date getting to know each other, talking about me.
Don't flatter yourself. No, we did not spend the whole time talking about you.
You knew a lot about me, right?
I knew what I've testified to.
What else did you talk about on your date?
Lots of things.
Like what, for instance?
Life, kids, the church, lots of things.
Okay. Did he tell you about anything about our other 4 children?
Yes,
So you knew that we did have 5 children as well?
I did.
Okay. Did he talk to you about my daughter Tylee?
He did.
Did he talk about his relationship with her?
I don't recall that.
Did he talk about the contention in his relationship with my daughter Tylee?
I don't recall that.
I'm sure you don't.
And I'm going to object to comments by the defendant made after questions, testifying.
I'll sustain the objection.
On your date, you talked about my husband was a life insurance salesman. Is that correct?
I knew he did something with money and insurance, but I really didn't know the details of what he did for work. Like I said, I don't ask the details about what someone does for work when I'm trying to get to know someone.
But you knew that he sold life insurance. You stated that.
I believe that I had a vague understanding that he did something with insurance.
And then he brought that up again at dinner.
No, we didn't talk about his work at dinner.
I thought you said you did talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said you did talk about that he changed the life insurance policy at dinner.
Well, you were asking me if we talked about that he sold insurance, which that didn't happen. But yes, he did tell me that he changed the beneficiary of his life insurance policy at dinner.
Did he tell you how much his life insurance policy was for?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
$1 million.
Did he tell you how much my life insurance policy was for?
I do not recall.
You don't recall?
We didn't talk about you very much in that vein.
When did you talk to him about me very much then? If it wasn't at dinner, was it in your text messages?
We were talking about what he was going through in the process of separating from you, not about what your life insurance policy was worth. And we talked about you on the phone, and when I say you, meaning what he was doing as he was going through this separation.
So let me understand. You were dating some different men on this website, right? From the websites.
Sure.
Would you say it was common for men to be talking so much about their supposed ex-wives during their conversations with a potential?
It's actually very common.
Really?
Really.
Interesting.
And again, Your Honor, I'm
right.
going to object to the defendant making comments after her questions.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I won't do that again.
All right, please stop.
I'll just ask the questions.
Thank you.
So there were some text messages between you and my husband after the dinner on July 10th. Is that correct?
Correct.
What time would those text messages have occurred?
After dinner,
What time?
10:45-ish.
10:45 to what?
I'm not certain, ma'am. After dinner.
10:45 to midnight, maybe?
I just told you I don't know. Maybe.
What did you discuss in those text messages?
And I'm going to object to relevance again, if there's a specific area.
Sustained.
You testified a minute ago that Charles told you a lot of things about his wife. You didn't say ex-wife, but you said wife. Is that correct?
Okay, sure.
What were a lot of things?
The things that I've testified to.
Can you be more specific?
Am I allowed to do a narrative then?
Let's go on sidebar.